Okay, today we have a special guest on the John Riley Project, Caleb Allen. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Doing pretty good on this Tuesday morning. Is it Tuesday morning? Yeah.
It is Tuesday. It's a little damp outside.
Yes, it is.
So, Caleb, you're the new hitting coach at Westview High School.
Yeah.
A longtime baseball coach, baseball player here in the San Diego North County. Well known in the area as a baseball guy.
Yeah, hopefully.
You are. Yeah, I mean, my son played under you, and a lot of other families here we know that have had the pleasure of having their children as on your teams. So, tell me a little bit about your new gig at Westview and how that's going so far.
Well, I love it. After spending about 12 years at Poway, under the great Deron Johnson as a hitting coach over there, and learning a lot from him. It was when I got the phone call to come over and be the hitting coach at Westview, it really kind of opened up a chance for me to do kind of like my own program. In fact, one of the things they said in the interview was, hey, we want you to come. We want you to focus on the hitters. We don't want anybody else worrying about the hitters. You do it. It's your baby. Take control of it and go. And so as much as I learned from Coach Johnson over at Poway, it was kind of nice to be the top guy in that regard.
Yeah, it is.
And so I felt like it was kind of time to go ahead and take that next step, and they've treated me well over there so far. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I always thought that you were overdue, for that kind of an assignment.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, because you had paid your dues, coaching at in the club ball at the JV level, and I was always, when's that varsity opportunity going to open up?
Yeah. Well, I did bounce kind of back and forth. To start, I just coached freshman baseball right out of college. Just jumped in with Ed Herman, and 2 years of that, and then I went over to El Camino and took a coaching job with the varsity team up in Oceanside.
I didn't know
El Camino.
that. Okay.
And because I wanted to get to the varsity level, and they labeled me as the hitting coach up there, but when I got there, not to speak ill of anybody by any means, but we had a lot of pitching coaches giving hitting advice, and I was kind of told early I was the low guy on the totem pole, and which is fine. I was a third year guy. What was I, 24 years old at the time? Right. But anyways, the next year, actually, Tom Bernansky brought me back to Poway, and I coached varsity there for 5 years as kind of like the catching coach. And then I got the job at San Diego Christian College and went over there for a couple of years. And then I came back to Poway and just did JV just because I was kind of on the downturn and hanging low and doing some other things with my life. Just kind of needed a little step back from baseball. But
well, I think then that's probably I didn't have a full understanding of your history, because when my son began coaching, began playing under your coaching, that was probably when you were at the JV level. So that's why I was thinking.
Yeah. So let's see. He was at one of our first new crush. So we've gone through about 3 different stages of the crush, right? And so we were at the Titan Baseball Club. And then we decided we didn't want to be just labeled as Poway kids. We wanted to open it up into like a San Diego travel club.
Right.
We had these thoughts of being a national team, representing San Diego. And not that those thoughts aren't still there, but that's when we changed it to the Crush. And I believe he was one of the first 8th graders in that club.
He might have been, yeah.
When they had those funky uniforms.
Right on.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think it was always, I always did, one of my main roles at Poway, even though it's not really an official role, and it was kind of making sure that the kids were getting prepared to come into Poway. And, the last thing we ever want to say is we're a feeder team, and we never made anything mandatory to play for club in order to go into high school or anything, but we always wanted to give the opportunity for kids coming into Poway High to have the high school coaches from Poway, be exposed to the high school coaches at Poway. And that's always been kind of my main role at Poway, is to make sure that opportunity was there. And and so we did a lot of 8th grade work, and that's where I met Trevor for the first time.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
So how's Westview looking?
Well, we're not there yet.
Okay. Well, it's a program. It's always developing, right?
We've got a lot of good young talent. In fact, there's a possibility we'll have 5 sophomores in the lineup.
Really?
In the starting lineup. I mean, I'd probably closer to 4. We actually, no, I take that back because we just lost one for the next 8 to 12 weeks. One of our stars, probably going to be our shortstop, went down with some tear in his shoulder.
Oh man!
So that's diving for a ball. That happened last week. So yeah, we lost that. But yeah, we're young. We've got some guys. We're still trying to develop the hitting side. But kind of the thing is nobody's really hitting right now. There's not many teams out there doing much hitting. So
right,
you kind of get into the full swing, and you never really know until you really strap the cleats on for the first time in that, in a game that matters. You do all this stuff in winter ball, and you're trying out certain things. But like I say, you never really know until it hits the fan, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, winter ball, it's experimenting. Got kids playing up. It's cold out there. It's hard.
12 guys in the lineup.
Yeah. So that's kind of rough. But I remember last year Westview had some really good players.
Yeah. They've had some success. They're still looking for, or I should say, we are still looking for our first title. But yeah, I mean they've made playoffs quite a few years. Had some high draft picks. Got a few guys playing in college ball right now. So yeah, it's really grown into a good baseball school, and hopefully we could take that next step here with the new staff.
Yeah, who was the kid last year? Was it Lyons that went to Santa Barbara?
Yep.
And then there was Mercado, who was drafted.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked on him. I wonder how he's doing. He's with the Rays, I think.
You know what? It's a good question.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I never coached him personally.
Well, he graduated, I think, in 17.
Yes.
I think he was a 2017 guy. And but the stadium there at Westview is nice. It's clean. I like those trees in the back, beyond the outfield fence. It's a nice stadium. It's very well maintained.
It is.
So it should be a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, and they just built a huge batting cage, a lot very similar to the one that Poway High built.
Yeah, it's like a pavilion.
It's nice. In fact, it's even bigger in Poway's.
Right on. Okay, yeah. You got a one-up. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's a nice cage. They got indoor bullpens, indoor cages. There's 4 cages in there that we've been, we haven't, with all the rain that we've had lately, we haven't missed a practice. And especially being the hitting coach, we've gotten a lot of hitting work in. Probably need to do a little more defense since we haven't gotten on the field, but yeah, it's nice having that indoor spot.
And I think it's just so awesome that you're a protege of Deron Johnson and his incredible coaching career as a hitting instructor, and all the things that you've picked up from that. It's almost like there's this Johnson coaching tree,
Yeah.
Like, you hear about that like in the NFL, right? But
especially with his brother Dom.
Yeah, exactly. And then Deron Sr. and the whole thing. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned from Deron Johnson as your kind of guru on hitting?
One of the first things Deron said to me when I got into coaching, and I really kind of dove in and said, "Hey, Deron, I remember the conversation when I said, "Hey, Deron, I want to learn everything from you. I want to be a hitting coach." And and I did the same thing with Tom Bernansky too, but with Deron, one of the first things he said is, "You got to understand, they're either going to hit or they're not, and you can't make everybody a hitter."
Right.
And he said, but what you can do is you can motivate him and you can give him everything that, everything that you can possibly give them, you can give them, but don't let them break your heart, kind of thing. And I don't think, it's funny because Dom and Deron both, I've seen them, their hearts break over kids not performing in certain, you just do as a coach, and I tell you, not many guys I've known have more passion than those two guys do when it comes to their players, but it really has kind of helped me in that regard. But then just a lot of the other things about, the attack approach and how not getting it, not giving down, not giving in, and a lot of the fundamental sides that I've learned, over the years, just most of my learning came from me working with a younger hitter and then Deron walking in the cage. And after I've got this guy to where I think, oh yeah, he's fine-tuned, Deron walks in and goes, no, man, you got to change this. Like, oh man, I totally missed that.
Right. Good.
So, but yeah, there were frustrating parts about that too, but yeah, I learned a lot from him, and just, mostly about the approach, what we're looking to do with those guys and how to create leadership from swinging a bat.
Right. Well, I remember when Trevor went and got hitting lessons with Deron, it was so much about how do you feel? How does it make you feel?
Yeah.
Because it's such a mental thing, right?
Absolutely.
It's having that confidence in there so you can attack.
Yeah.
And that's what I noticed is that, Deron obviously taught a lot of the mechanics, but it was almost as much, the psychological side of it.
One thing that I feel like I've taken from that is the mechanical side can be built through the mental side. And like talking about Deron, always talking about how he feels. You do a lot of these drills to produce mechanics, but you don't do the drill and tell the kid what mechanic they're trying to produce. You tell them what they're supposed to feel. And then when they have the right feeling, usually the good mechanic comes with it. And so because we get lost, and I've been a victim of this many times as a coach, you get lost in like, okay, well, your hands need to be doing this, your foot need to do, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And this is what your body should be doing. But the kid tries to do that with their body but never has the feel. They're never going to repeat that mechanic.
Right.
But, like you were talking about with Trevor's experience, when they feel it, there's this whole new side that opens up that it doesn't have to be a perfect mechanic if they get the right feeling.
Right.
So, and that's, absolutely. And again, it goes Dom. I've caught bullpens for Dom on the pitching side, and it's the same thing.
Oh, it is.
And it's magical in my opinion, because you don't see it taught that way a lot. And
right.
I hope that that's what my players are getting from me,
Well, it seems like when the player executes the mechanics correctly, in this case, both Deron and Dom would always ask the kid, how does that feel? Mm-hmm. And then the player would be able to express that feeling, and so then it gets probably more deeply woven into their brain, right?
Yeah.
And so then they, like to your point, they're not thinking about their rotation or their hands; they're just thinking about how they feel.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and because when you're in the batter's box facing a pitcher, especially a very let's say it's a top-of-the-line pitcher.
Yeah.
You don't want to be thinking about your hips. I mean, there might be little keys. You might have to think hands, something like that. But you want to be in a mental state where you're like in attack mode.
Right.
And that's a feeling.
Yeah, it is.
But then another side kind of talking about how they can that can really have a long-term effect. My favorite thing in teaching hitting, especially when it comes to the younger kids, is that kid that walks into the box that's never hit a ball hard in his life. And you're sitting in there in the cage and you're working with him and you're showing him, and he might even be getting a little frustrated. And then finally you go, okay, now let's put it all together. And all of a sudden he barrels one up and you see that big smile.
Yeah.
And you just go, you're locked in.
Yeah.
That's it. You're gonna you're gonna at least make it through Little League.
It's a magnificent feeling.
It's the best
when
feeling.
you barrel a ball and the ball goes a mile, and almost like you don't feel it in your hands.
Yeah.
It's just like a trampoline, like you're hitting. It's an incredible. It's a great vibe.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you the best ball I ever hit. It's actually going back. We're going to talk about Deron again.
Yeah.
It was my senior year in high school. We were at Mission Bay, and it was Deron Johnson's first day out at Poway High. I was a senior. It was a summer ball game. So I was going into my senior year then. And he saw me take one at bat, and believe it or not, he was actually pretty quiet that year because he was getting, he was kind of stepping in, seeing who everybody was.
Yeah.
I'm getting that same feeling right now. It's like you don't want to dive in too much.
Yeah.
But he pulled me aside after my first at bat, and he said, "Hey man, I don't want to do too much, but just try this one little thing." Well, I hit a ball out at Mission Bay. I've never hit a home run in my life. I hit the ball over the center field fence, into the wind, over the fence. I didn't even know it went out of the yard. I swear, as soon as I hit it, I just saw a bright light. So as I'm rounding third, and Bob Perry gives me a high five, I remember just going, holy cow, I like this new hitting coach.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd talk about it. It's a seller when you hit it hard, man.
Well, imagine if you were able to create that kind of experience for all these players at Westview.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Wouldn't that be special?
Oh, that'd be a dream. You know? Fortunately, I don't think it's going to happen that way, but
it might. It just might just be that one little thing.
I hope we can have a good offensive year, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I know that they've had a lot of good, good years on the pitching side. Keep holding runs, holding the opposing offense down But I would like to see, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see us come in and open up an offense at Westview to where we're a threat, you know?
Yeah, nowhere to go but up, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to say it like that, but yeah, you know, because they've had some success in the past years, and I love the coaches that were there before.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but respect for those guys, but to have the opportunity to come in, obviously, you don't look back, you just look forward and say, you know what, here's what we got. Again, we got a young team. Let's go and shoot, man. Let's go for gold and win CIF. Next year they're opening up state.
Right, that's right, they are.
So,
yeah.
you know, I mean, how awesome would that be to come in and win a state title or something, you know, in a few years? But, yeah, again, that's thinking big, but that's the goals, right?
But it's always interesting is football and basketball were able to go at state level, but baseball never did.
Yeah, and I think as far as my understanding of it is it's because it's the time of the year. You know, when we have our CIF championship, the kids are just getting out of school and getting into finals. You know, I think CIF championships usually in San Diego is usually that first week of June.
Yeah.
And so they get out of school by the, 15th through the 20th, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So to go off and do a state now, you know, you're going to have to take your kids out of school for the last 2 weeks, and it'll probably go into summer too. So, which nowadays too, a lot of your college recruiting is done in the summer.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's why they're moving the season up. Excuse me, they're moving the season up a week this year, and then I think they're supposed to move it up 1 week more next year.
Oh, wow.
And to try to open up that, you know, a couple more weeks to where we can have a state championship. But
when's your opening day?
We open up on, was it the I was just looking at it. We open up with Grossmont.
So it's is it like in a week or maybe 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's a week from Saturday.
A week from Saturday.
So, what date that is, I don't remember.
Okay, so like in a week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're right. We have tryouts on Saturday, and we away, you know, and we always start right away.
Yeah.
So, but, and we will be, because we're starting a week early, we've got a soccer player and a basketball player that are probably going to be in playoffs that we probably won't have at the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, that's the downside of starting that week earlier.
But hopefully you got a deep enough bench, give some other kids an opportunity, and
yeah, hopefully.
So I always fascinated by the tryout process, because I think most people know who the players are going to be. You know, maybe the last couple of guys on the end of the bench might be in play, but I always love the story of like the kid that no one expected that kind of walked on and made the team. Yeah. I mean, have you ever had any of those experiences?
You know, long term, yeah. We had this kid, his name was Dylan Mulholland, and he's still, to my day, when I think about him, he gives me goosebumps. He was actually one of my first kids when I coached with Ed Herman, Hoggy. I don't know, did you ever meet Hoggy?
I never met him, but I've heard so many great things about him.
I mean, he's the one that brought me into coaching, but he brought me in as the freshman coach, and that's when he started the first Crush team. Of course, he had Crush teams before. My first Crush team. And he opened it up to these 12 kids that were going into Poway High the next year. And Dylan was one of those 8th graders, incoming freshmen. And he was this little scrangly little lefty, you know, that just loved playing ball, but he wasn't any good.
Right on. I like that.
I actually cut him that freshman year. I cut. I loved the kid, but we had like 25 kids already on the roster. There was just no room. It was one of those years where we had too many kids, and he got cut. Comes back and plays for our next year's team. So he goes back and plays on the 8th grade Crush team. Because he was young enough, he was able to play that 14U.
Oh, right on.
You know, so he played that spring. He played for me. And
nice.
And so he came back and played. Even though I cut him from freshman ball, he came back and played for me on the Crush. So that was cool. And then next year, and his sophomore year gets cut. And then junior year gets cut.
Oh, man.
He comes
didn't
back.
Give up.
So, and then his junior year was the year I went to El Camino. And then his senior year was the year I came back as the varsity coach. And I was actually, now that I think about it, I was the pitching coach that year. Believe it or not. Yes.
Oh,
I was the
versatile
pitching
guy.
coach, I think. I don't remember. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I remember Dom helping me out with how, like, what to do with pitching. Yeah, so I was the pitching coach that year. And Dylan came in as a left-hander, and he made the team. He didn't throw many innings, but here he was, a senior, didn't play at all. And he had this pickoff move that he had just perfected because he kept playing.
Yeah.
Went and played wherever he could. And ended up, so he threw a few innings for us that year, not much, and then just kind of, I didn't really hear from him. Well, as of 2 years ago, this kid's probably now, gosh, I couldn't even tell, 26.
Yeah.
He's 7 years old. He was pitching professionally in the Canadian League somewhere. And I mean, making, peanuts. He just did it because he loved it. Still works at a batting cage. The kid just loves baseball, and he still throws.
Living the dream, man.
In fact, I got an invite from him. He was something like he was getting married, and his bachelor party was he was getting a bunch of guys together to play a baseball game. That was his bachelor party.
That is awesome.
Yeah, out in New Mexico somewhere. Yeah, so I mean, a kid, you have those kids that just, you never know, and they just, and you can't say he ever made it big or anything, didn't play college ball, but I mean, he got to go and play in front of some crowds, and yeah.
But he just gets to do what he loves.
That's that.
Absolutely. He's not making $1 million, but so what? Just do what you love.
And it just shows you the passion. When the passion's there, you find a way. You really do.
That's a great story.
So yeah, good old Dylan.
Yeah, I think Mulholland. I think any relation to Terry Mulholland?
No, not that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
He was a lefty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Phillies, Giants, I think, back in the day. That was like in the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
So, well, good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you never know. In fact, my favorite story is, and it might be, this is not even a baseball story, but it was a Reese Witherspoon story.
Oh, right on.
Talks about,
Reese Witherspoon.
No. Is that right? Yeah. Something about she got cut from her volleyball team as a freshman. Spent 2 weeks crying, and her mom said, "You know what? I'm sick of you crying. I'm putting you in drama class."
Hey, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. So I always tell the parents, if their kids aren't going, hey, you never know. Baseball might not be their thing, but shoot, if they got drive, you never know. So
there was what was is this a true story? Was it Michael Jordan got cut?
Yeah.
When he was in high school.
His freshman team.
Yeah. And then there was actually a player for San Diego State basketball that got cut in high school. And then he went on and played at junior college, and he ended up, was a transfer as a junior and played for the Aztecs.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, was it Eric Sanders? I can't remember who it was, but love hearing those stories that just people just don't give up.
Yeah.
And they just keep living the dream, and then eventually that opportunity opens up.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. Shoot, the other thing is, too, especially in high school, kids grow. All of a sudden, they just, they sprout up. In fact, Trevor was kind of one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, every time I take a year off or I go somewhere, like I remember going to San Diego Christian College and not spending any time at Poway High, coming back 2 years later and going, wow, who are you?
Yeah.
All the kids got bigger, of course,
Well, so much changes. That's what's fascinating is when the kids are in Little League, there's always that stud kid as a 10 or 11-year-old. Yeah. And by the time they're 16, the world has changed. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So it's incredible.
Yeah, indeed.
So let's say you're at Westview and they got a game and you're in the middle of the game. Okay, and the players are, offense is going on. What do you see your role being? Are you going to be kind of sitting down with the players right before or after at bats and kind of helping them along?
Yeah, I mean, it depending. My role is definitely going to be, keep an active approach going. So depending on what the pitcher's trying to do to us, do they bring in a new pitcher? Making sure if we've got any type of scouting report we can. It's a little more difficult in high school. Because sometimes you might not even know who's going to be pitching against you. But nowadays, especially with Perfect Game, you can get a lot of video and if you're going in before,
Yeah.
Just look up their Perfect Game profile. So yeah. But then when we get in the game, I try to as much as I can, I try to let the guys do their thing. I'm a big believer that practices are coach's time, games are players' time. But there is definitely approaches that we can take, whereas, like, for example, let's say all of a sudden we see something that, hey, this guy's throwing a, every time he starts, with a fastball for a strike, his second pitch is going to be a curveball. I mean, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Little things like that. And so then, we'll call the guys together. Hey, listen, this is what he's doing. Here's a tendency he's falling into, or maybe he's tweaking his glove, or, we got this, this advantage that we're going to try to take advantage of this pitcher. And if he's tipping pitches or anything like that, or, hey, he's working us away. He hasn't thrown a single fastball in. Guys, let's take that outside fastball away from him, or vice versa. He's just trying to show you in, but he's going to try to beat you away.
Right.
So those approaches that change in the game, absolutely, I'm going to be involved in making sure I'm talking to the kids, and or keep them motivated is always a thing.
Yeah.
Kid strikes out twice in a row or something. It's like, hey, but come on, hey, this is good at bat. One of my favorite sayings is, hey man, good miss. because they might take, baseball's tough, it's swinging, and they might do everything perfect and just miss the ball, or, pop it up to the catcher or something, but everything was perfect except for, that much. And so
it's a game of failure, right?
Yeah. And so, you got to make sure that you can decipher whether it was a good miss versus, hey man, you just gave up there. Like, why are you giving up on that at bat? Why'd you give in? The saying I like to use is don't sacrifice bat speed for contact. Don't when you feel beat, the kid wants to just kind of try to put the ball in play. I hate that saying, just put it in play.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right.
That's a little league saying that, hey, we just want to hit it to that guy. We want to put it in play because they're going to throw the ball away.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to win on that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen. That's not how it goes in high school. So
don't sacrifice bat speed for contact.
Yeah.
I like that.
So because I've seen plenty of stories I've seen plenty of examples like firsthand where guys, they get beat real bad by a pitch, but because they continued to swing it, they accidentally hit it on the barrel.
Yeah. But that's like a life lesson, right? It's to be confident, swing for the fences, give it your all. Don't be tentative. Don't be overly cautious. Don't overthink. I mean, that applies in life.
Oh, yeah. Well, we call it the oh crap theory. Every decision we make can go into one of two categories. You're either saying oh crap or oh yeah. And so when that pitch comes out of his hand, which one are you saying? And,
right.
And if you're sacrificing bat speed for contact, you're probably in the oh crap mode. Like, oh no, it's a curveball.
Right.
Or whatever, or a shooter. How many times we see a guy throwing hard and go, oh man, he's throwing really hard. Oh shoot!
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, in fact, one of our things I've been hammering this with the guys, especially because a lot of them got aspirations to go on to college ball or play professionally, So now we've got scouts in the stands, that kind of thing. And I say, hey guys, for these scouts and for the everybody looking on you and other team, whatever, what's it take to be considered a good hitter? They go, oh, well, you got to do this. I said, no, it's pretty simple. You have to compete against good pitching. And if you go out and you beat that good pitcher, you're considered a good hitter.
That's right.
Right? Doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah.
Right? You just go out and beat the good guy. But what happens is we get caught up, because especially in San Diego or high school ball, you face the not so good teams all the time.
Yes.
And so your averages you might be hitting 300, but how are you hitting against the guys that you would be facing in college? Because that's what the scouts are looking at.
That's right.
They want to see you, beat the guy that's, the top guys.
Right.
So, but yeah.
So I would imagine also that your approach is going to have to be so personalized, right? Because different players have different, some wear their emotion on their sleeve, some are more close to the vest, right? Some are stone-faced, some are receptive to coaching more so than others.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And the one thing that when I was talking to the other coaches at Westview that brought me in, we talked about that and not creating robots. The last thing we want to do is put a blanket like, hey guys, we all need to do this. I mean, there are some blanket policies that we do, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, in fact, there's two guys on the team right now, the hitters, that I've even told them, I said, guys, I'm not talking to you, because I like where you're at. They're both seniors. And I just say, you know what, just go do your thing.
Yeah.
And if I see something, I'll come talk to you. But don't let me not talking to you think that it's like I don't like you or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just, I just think you're in a good spot, and I don't want to come in as the new guy and mess you up.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right, yeah.
But it's interesting. You watch a game on TV, and certain hitting coaches have special relationships with certain players. Mm-hmm. And you'll see, like, after a tough at-bat, maybe they'll come and sit down next to the hitting coach in the dugout.
Yeah.
And, they'll kind of break it down, right? Other players, that relationship doesn't exist. And I think it's just individualized.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody analyzes information a little differently too, And it also depends on the at bat. I can tell you right now, my college hitting coach, if you had a good at bat and you came and talked to him, he'd say, "What the hell are you doing talking to me? Get away from me! You just did well. Go away. Don't do that again."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I have guys that after every at bat will come and hey, well, almost one of the worst ones is like, well, what did I do wrong? Kind of looking for that. Well, fix me. And it's
right.
Like, come on, man. It's all right. Like, good miss.
Yeah. It's tough, man. I mean, it's hard to be a good hitter. It really is. I mean, it's like one of the hardest things to do in sports.
Yeah, that's been said a few times. Huh?
Yeah, and here you are. You're carrying the load of that one. I mean, as far as leading the troops, you know.
Yeah. It's a game of failure, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I think you're going to do really well.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
So tell me more about your backstory. Like, how did you get involved in baseball? Where did you play as a youngster? And kind of walk me through how you got to this point.
Let's see. I mean, it started out, I was a Navy brat. So my dad was actually a pretty high-ranking officer in the Navy, and I had two brothers. I was in the middle of two brothers, older and younger, we just kind of grew up playing baseball. Little league. I played in I played in Colorado Springs. I played in Norfolk, Virginia, and then my dad got stationed at Miramar when I was this was in '94, and I was about 10 years old at the time, and so we moved into Poway, and then he retired. He retired out of Miramar, and so we just ended up staying. And I went to Poway National Little League. Yeah. Class of '96. We were the '96 All-Stars.
Wow.
Even went to Cooperstown in their first year as that Cooperstown Dreams Park.
Oh yeah, right on.
I was there as a 12-year-old in 1996. It was the first year there.
Nice.
In fact, I just looked it up. My picture is still up there on the website with the San Diego Sting.
Oh, right on. So what position did you play back then?
For the most part, all over. I did a little bit of catching, but I was mostly a second baseman, third baseman. Didn't play a ton of outfield, mostly that second base, third base spot. Yeah. And then did some catching. Never pitched. I didn't like pitching. So I don't know why. I was one of the only guys on the team that didn't pitch. And I don't remember not wanting to pitch. I just didn't.
Yeah, that's okay.
And so maybe because there was plenty of other guys that did, and I was happy with that. So, always kind of the number 2 hitter, kind of I always loved hitting and running. Like, that was my favorite. I was always like, hey, coach, put the hit and run on. I felt like I could hit it like where I wanted to. And I learned at a young age, and I can't remember the coach that taught me, probably Troy Afton, because he was my coach growing up. He's a Yankee scout now. But you could see like how the defense moved when in the middle of the pitch, and you can just hit it. Just play pepper and hit it where they're not.
Right on, nice.
I can get a hit on anytime. So, but yeah, just that, and then played. Of course, that was back in a day before there was really a lot of travel ball. I think our travel ball team, there was only one main team out of Poway, and then there was a team that was kind of mixed from Poway RB. I played with a lot of Rancho Bernardo guys growing up. But yeah. And then went on, let's see, then went and played at Poway High. Yeah. And then, had 4 years. That's where I really became a catcher. Yeah. My sophomore year. In fact, it was Ed Herman. Hoggy was coaching at Poway at that time, and my brother had converted. My older brother had converted and was the starting catcher for the varsity team. And they, you just kind of saw the writing on the wall that there wasn't a lot of catching coming in, and so there was like 5 second basemen.
right Oh yeah.
And and there was also a time where we were kind of in that converge of you didn't need a huge guy behind the plate. In fact, if you could be quick and you could block balls and throw guys out, they were happy with it. You didn't need to be the big hitter, or just the big backstop type guy. And so I did, and Hoggy taught me how to catch, and I learned from also, again, growing up, I had Troy Afton as my coach. He was a catcher in the big leagues, and so I had some good wisdom going through it there, and that's how I got my scholarship. In fact, my scholarship I got because of one throw. I was up at a camp up at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, just in one of those showcase camps, that I had gotten invited to. It was the only one I ever went to. And one of the coaches, oh man, I forget his name. He's out of Shreveport, Louisiana, Centenary College. Got me on his clock as a pop time of 1.78, and which is really, I think he got it wrong, to be completely honest. I mean, it was one of the best throws I ever had, and my arm was feeling good at that time too. But I used that. I had him write out a report for me on a little scouting report, and he put on there, I clocked him at a 1.78 in a game. Boom, I sent that out, and that was it. I got the call from Cal Poly Pomona, and they said, we saw your pop time.
Right on, yeah.
He came down and watched me play, and I actually struck out twice in the first 2 innings. I think we were doing it, but I threw 2 runners out.
Oh, good.
He called and offered me a scholarship.
Right on.
I said, but coach, I struck out twice. He's like, I don't care. He threw 2 guys out. I was like, all right, sweet.
Exactly.
The conversation didn't go exactly that way, but
I know you mean. But isn't it amazing how it's just like one little, moment, one, like it's just fate, just that one little thing happens and the right person sees you at the right time and then boom.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and it goes to like one thing I learned from watching my older brother go through it too. And I know I've talked to you about this, the whole recruiting process.
Yeah.
You have to market yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember doing that. And Cal Poly was where I wanted to go. I wanted to play D2 because I just kind of had that, I wasn't a D1 player. And I wanted to go somewhere where I could play right out the gate.
Yeah.
And I did, and I marketed myself hard to them and a few other schools, and I got it.
Nice.
We try to tell the kids now is, if you just go to these showcases and spend all the money, it's not going to do you any good. You go, you get some credentials built up. You get those times, or that the official times. The Perfect Game now is pretty much a big one now, right?
Right.
You get there, you do that, but then you market. You go out and you sell yourself to these coaches. Because I can tell you, I've done a little recruiting out of San Diego Christian College, and it's nice when you get people wanting to come play for you.
Oh, yeah.
Versus going up. I mean, how many kids you go up to and say, if you're at a big school, I'm sure it's a little easier for the guys at San Diego State.
Yeah, right.
Whereas me over at San Diego Christian College, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, when you actually get somebody to come up and say, hey, man, I want to play for you. You just want to, man, come on, let's go talk.
Yeah.
So if you do that and you do it the right way, it can make an impact. And you do it, just like in sales. If you've ever been in sales, how many balls can you throw out there? One of them's going to go in.
Exactly. But you got to be smart in who you target, and you got to have the right approach,
Absolutely.
and you got to find the right fit.
Yep.
It's sales. It
Absolutely.
definitely is sales.
Yeah.
But it must be special because it's interesting as you think about it from the perspective of a player, just hoping that some college is going to get their attention. But a lot of times the colleges, they want to hear from the player.
Yeah.
They want to hear, how bad does a player want to play for me? So
Absolutely.
And then for some players, San Diego Christian College is the perfect fit.
Yeah.
The location, the curriculum, the baseball program, everything.
Yeah. Well, we used to always say, NAI is a good way to go. We had our troubles at San Diego Christian College mostly because we didn't have a facility.
Yeah.
So that made it tough. But man, we sold the San Diego dream big time.
Oh, as you should.
When we didn't end up recruiting a lot of San Diego kids because of it. We got a lot of kids to come into San Diego because it's like, hey man, you can get to play college baseball in San Diego. And here we go. Let's go. Even though they're in Santee and they didn't quite tell them right off the gate that it takes you 45 minutes to get to the beach. It's San Diego. But
exactly.
Yeah, so, but there were a lot of kids that wanted to come in. At that point, we got a lot of basically what we call bounce backs, D1 guys that didn't play for whatever reason. It might even gotten in trouble. We had a few guys that had just made mistakes.
Yeah.
And,
that happens.
And in fact, we got some really good players that way.
Yeah.
And came back and NAIA, there's just different eligibility rules there too for the NCAA. And so we got a lot of bounce backs in that regard. And but yeah, selling that San Diego dreams definitely.
As you should.
Yeah.
Because there's always that kid that just wants to play, wants to play in a beautiful area, wants to get out of town, wants to escape where they live, and you're the perfect solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's awesome.
So yeah, it was nice. And it sounds like they're doing pretty good over there now. Brian Schrader's the new head coach over there. He's been there about 3 years now.
So where's their home field?
So we played, when I was there, we played at Grossmont College.
Okay.
But we practiced at the Santee Sportsplex. So we were actually playing on a field that my 10-year-olds would play on the next day, you know? And the fence was only, 280 feet. So we actually hit, when we were taking live BP, we actually hit soft balls. The head coach, Landon Burke, called them dog biscuits because they wouldn't go anywhere because we couldn't hit balls too far over the fence. So it'd start breaking windshields in the parking lot.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, it made it tough. And so, you know, but we got our work done. We got it dialed in. But we got to play on a beautiful field. I mean, Grossmont College was awesome to play on.
Nice.
And so we played there. Now I believe they are both playing and practicing at the Barona facility where the Barona Stars play out there by the casino.
Right on.
Which is good. You know, that's good for them because I don't know if that field gets used in the off season anyways. You know, they just use it in the summer. But yeah, I think that's good for them and to get a little place they can call home. So one day, hopefully, they build a facility. Now they've been talking about it.
Oh, I'm sure.
In fact, when I got interviewed by Chris Bando, he laid out the plans for the new stadium.
Right.
Turns out that was just the plans, right?
Right.
I don't think there was any money anywhere.
Yeah, they got to do
yet.
some fundraising. Yeah, that's how that works. But you got to have a plan in order to be able to get the money.
That's right. And it was a nice plan, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they're still hustling.
Yeah.
You know?
Hopefully.
Chris Bando, any relation to Sal Bando?
Yeah, it's his brother.
Really?
Yeah, Chris played for the Indians.
Oh, that's right, he did. Yeah, I remember that name.
Another catcher.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was the one that brought me in. In fact, brought me in as the pitching coach again.
Yeah, right.
Seems to be how I get my in. I go in as the pitching coach.
Right.
So I was the pitching coach there for 1 year and then like the lead assistant the next year. But yeah, Chris was, our coach Bando was the head coach, but he was looking to step down. So he brought me in. He had brought Landon Burt in, which is a San Diego State guy that I actually played with back in high school, summer ball. And he brought Landon in to kind of take over. He ended up, before the season started, and this is 2015, Landon ended up taking over as the head coach. But Coach Bando was kind of stepping down ease by ease, you know.
Right.
He was also our chaplain.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he's definitely learned a lot on that. It's on the spiritual side there too. So
nice.
Yeah, but so he gave me a shot to coach a little college ball.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was fun. That was the road trips and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. How far did you guys travel?
Let's see. Our furthest is we went to Arizona. Went to Phoenix to play not Grand Canyon. Arizona Christian.
Okay.
And then we'd go up to. Oh, what was the furthest? I mean, we go up to San Bernardino, Santa Barbara, and play Westmont. Mm-hmm. I want to say we went further there, but can't think of it. But yeah, there's a good 13-hour bus rides in there. Yeah,
some overnight stays, like a 3-game series on a weekend.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's a blast, man.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
That is.
Yeah. So
good stories.
Yeah.
You know, the reason I asked about Sal Bando is when I was a kid. I grew up in the Bay Area, and the Giants were my team. But in the early 70s, the Giants were they were a terrible team. Okay. But that's when the Swingin' A's were like, they won 3 back-to-back World Series, and Sal Bando was the third baseman. So I always remembered him from that era. So then I remember Chris Bando was the Indians. Yeah. So small world, right?
Yeah. It was kind of cool to get to play or get to coach with him a little bit and learn some of the stuff that he brought to the table.
So tell me some stories about some of the guys you've played with or played against that, that have gone on to play in the major leagues.
Well, we played against Cole Hamels. I mean, he was the same grad year as I was out of Rancho Bernardo. And I just remember him being lights out in high school ball.
I'll bet, yeah.
And but he's still playing. Obviously, everybody knows Cole. And I mean, I never knew him personally. A lot of my guys that I played with and that are good friends with, he played with because he played on that other travel team out of Poway when I was growing up. And he wasn't anything like top notch or anything in Little League or anything like that, as far as I remember. I mean, he was a good player,
Yeah.
And but yeah, you got to high school, and it was just that left hand, man, just made you quiver with the stick in your hand, man.
Well, he grew probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was that. Yeah, and but he was. I mean, he could throw it hard, and he could make that thing turn when he wanted to.
Nice.
And he had a really good pickoff move. I remember that. And but there was a. I know. In fact, we were playing against him, and it was. Let's see. We were at that point. RB was just the absolute powerhouse. I mean, they were nationally known throughout. That was the Blaylock era, back when Hank Blaylock played and Jake, his brother Jake played. Basically, Coach Blaylock's nephews were there. And so Cole was kind of right in the middle of that time, and I was too. We hadn't beat between watching my older brother play, then me playing. It was like something like 8 years since Poway had beat RB in a regular season, spring season game.
No.
And so we were playing them in Coaches League, which was then as our summer ball. Mm-hmm. It was like an extension of the spring season. It wasn't. It's for like the new team to come in, and back then it was taken more seriously. Club ball in the summer wasn't as big as it is now. There wasn't all the scouting going on. Everybody played for their high school team, and the high school coaches coached, and it was competitive. It wasn't as competitive as spring ball was, but it was something like there were still bragging rights. And Cole was throwing against us in a tournament game because I want to say we were at Granite Hills or something like that. Grossmont maybe. Grossmont or Granite Hills, somewhere down in that area. And he was throwing, and he was in like his fourth inning, just shutting us out as usual. And all of a sudden he threw a pitch that hit the top of the backstop. And everybody's going, what the heck happened? And he just walked straight off the mound. And turns out my buddy who was at the plate, actually a very good friend of mine, Tyler Wagner, said he could just see like his whole arm. It just looked like half the size. And I guess I never heard the official story or anything, but I guess his bicep tendon ripped. So
really?
Like his bicep, it was basically torn off of the bone. And he just walked off, and that was kind of the end of that. And actually we ended up coming back and winning that game. Okay. Well, so it felt good to beat RB. Even though it was a summer game.
Yeah, and it's kind of rough when, when Cole had the injury, but you still fought back and won.
We did, yeah. In fact, I remember Tyler Whiteman hit a grand slam right after that to come back, and we won that game. But shoot, he obviously ended up not throwing that year. That would have been my junior year because he didn't pitch at all. In fact, and then they brought in Justin Dowdy, who ended up throwing. He was like their replacement left-hander. Right. All of a sudden, they had this new lefty transfer in. Right. Yeah. Cole goes down next day. They got a big lefty coming out, anyways. But we actually faced him in CIF championship that year. But then Cole came back the next year and dominated. Yeah, as you would expect. Yeah. And then obviously went on to the career he had. But yeah, I mean, I remember that in high school. I mean, he was overpowering then. Couldn't imagine hitting him now. Jeez. But yeah, I mean, there's a few guys I got to watch play, and there's a few guys I got to coach. That are, in fact, two of them just tapped in last year. Two Poway guys tapped into the big leagues last year. Kevin Newman. Came in. He was a crush kid. Yeah. I remember he was played in the program back when he was in 7th grade, and got to watch him go through and play through Poway. I mean, I tell you one thing about Kevin is nobody took more ground balls after practice than that guy did. And it wasn't like he just took ground balls straight on. He took the ground balls to make the sweet play. Really? He'd be like, Coach, hit it in the hole. It's like, all right, boom, you hit it in the hole, and he would work. And how many balls he would have overthrown first base doing the Jumpman Jeter throw, whatever. Yeah. And then I remember his senior year at Hilltop in the championship game. The last play for the final out was a Jumpman Jeter that he made in the hole, and he backhanded it, jumped through it, and threw the guy out. Bam, end of the game. Wow. And it's just, you just go back and go, man, that guy, he worked on that. Right. And I try to tell the kids, I love using him as an example. I told him this the other day, and he's probably the guy I use an example when it comes to working hard. Yeah. Guys, it's not just about going out and swinging, it's about going out and working with a purpose. Yeah. And that guy did. And and congrats to him on tapping in. He played a little second base with the Pirates this year. And yeah. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't checked on where he's supposed to be this year, but I'm sure he's going to be right there, hopefully on the big league club. And then, of course, there's Austin Wins. I didn't get to coach a lot because he was he would have been like a sophomore. He was a sophomore when I came in my first year as the freshman coach. But yeah, I mean, another kid that just worked his butt off, and you look at these guys and they deserve it.
And he got the call last year, right?
Yeah, he got the call like in the early.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being at the banquet, the Poway High banquet, and he had just hit his first home run, and that was in June.
Yeah.
And so he got to play a lot last year.
That's awesome.
And last I heard, I read an article saying that he's probably going to be the guy this year, at least, one of two-man guys behind the dish.
Sweet.
I know, and that's cool, man. He's another just great kid. Both of those kids, just great kids. Good families.
Yeah.
Just taught right. Just taught to be man, like the proper kind of man.
Right.
So it's cool. Humbled.
Well, I think Kevin Newman. He was playing some shortstop at the end of the year last year, but then you heard a little bit of chirping about Machado and the Pirates. I heard that. I'm like, really? And I'm like, don't get in a shortstop. Because they were even talking about maybe getting Galvis at the Pirates. I know, leave that open for Kevin.
Yeah, I know. You root for that now.
Yeah, exactly. So, my the other Kevin Newman story is that my son used to work at an Italian restaurant here. Actually, both my kids worked there at Mama Cella's in Rancho Bernardo. It's right by the 7-Eleven there.
Yep.
And one day Kevin Newman was there with his family. And so he got a chance to talk with Trevor, and Trevor said he was just a class guy, down to earth. Just they talked about Poway baseball. He was just a great guy.
Yeah.
So it's great to hear them have success.
Here's a story for the dads when it comes to going back. Talking about Kevin. There was when he was in 8th grade. It's either 7th or 8th grade, like that 13, 14U age group. He was a part of a kid. And we had a decent, 6 group of guys, 6 kids that were decent. And then you had, the other 4 that weren't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's how my teams were always that way. I never cut a kid. That was one thing about club ball. Never once cut one kid in the 13 years I did it. But that's what happened. You have these 6, 7 kids that were really good, or at least were competitors.
Yeah.
But then you had to fill in those other 2, 3 holes. And we had one of those teams, and we were going out to Arizona for one of those, the March tournament. You got to go out when and 4 of the dads came up the week before and said, we don't want to send our kids. And it was because they didn't want to travel all the way out there to get blown out. Because because we just didn't have a full team.
Yeah.
We were getting smoked by the teams that did, and a lot of the teams we were playing against in tournaments, they were, we didn't do too well in tournaments. Mm-hmm. And so they did, and I said, well, okay, we had some backup kids, I had enough reserve kids at that point. I think we had 28 kids in the program at that age group, but again, it wasn't our tournament team. But anyway, so I went up. I remember going up to John Newman and saying, hey, John, and Kevin's pretty much our last good player left.
Right.
I said, I understand if you don't want to take this trip. And he just looked at me and he said, why the hell would I do that? If my son can get his ass kicked, then awesome. He said, just make sure you keep teaching him what you're teaching. And it was like, okay.
That's cool.
And now you look at it, and a lot of those kids, and of course I won't name names, they were good kids, but they didn't end up playing anywhere or anything, and I don't even know what they're doing. They're definitely not kids I kept in touch with.
Right.
And, but, you look at that, and you look at kind of that attitude from the parent that, it's like, hey, it's not about that right now. It's about going out. It's okay if you take your licks, go out, get the experience, and continue to work hard and control what you can control. Do what you can do for the team, and that's what you do. And you can see he did that through high school. But yeah, I remember that specifically. John, I don't know if you remember that, but I do, because that meant a lot to me. That was because again, I was young. I was a young coach. I was probably 24, 25 at the time. So
probably felt like a mutiny, right?
Well,
everyone jumping ship.
Absolutely.
That's a tough spot.
It was a stab to the heart in a lot of ways, and it's just, but that's the structure of baseball right now at the youth level. It doesn't, it's just about winning. That's all that matters. And if you're on a team, if if your son's on a team that's not winning or doesn't have good enough players around, your kid's getting, hurt, and he's not going to go anywhere because he's not playing around good enough kids, and he's going to get disgruntled because he's losing, or all these different things you can throw at it. And it's just, they end up wearing 7 different uniforms that year.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is most of the time those kids go to another team that's really good, that's winning those tournaments, and they don't even play.
Right.
And it's just, so it's frustrating to watch. And I have told my children's mother this plenty of times, and family members. I swear, I just pray to God I don't end up like that with my kids. And so we'll see. My son's 7. He's playing his first year of Little League.
Okay, good. Okay. As a parent, it's hard, because you feel like you're emotionally connected with your kid with every pitch, every swing of the bat, every throw. You feel it, and, we always want what's best for our children. But yeah, some parents go over the line, you probably have experienced that a number of times.
Yeah. What I always try to tell a parent is, and I used to say this to any of our new teams parent meeting. I said, I want you to think about how they learn math. And when you send them to school, and then they go into that gate and you don't see them anymore. And then they go into a classroom with the doors closed, and the teacher starts teaching them what they need to know, right? And then they take tests behind those closed doors. And they come out at the end of the day, right? And they come in and they jump in and they've got homework to do, and you help them with their homework. And maybe there's sometimes, and I'm experiencing this for the first time, even in a first grade math setting, I'm going, I don't know how to do that. Wait a minute, what's your teacher want to do? I don't get this. But there's that. But then you send your kid back to school the next day with his homework hopefully completed right. And they learn, and if the teacher has to reprimand them, if they got something wrong, she's going to put the red X there.
Yeah.
And hopefully they learn from that. Well, it's the same thing if you send them through the gate at my baseball field. If you're putting them through that gate and you're telling them, hey, you're giving me the authority basically to teach them in the same exact way. And what I want you to do is I just want you to stay positive at the dinner table talk. If they come home and they're frustrated about something, obviously we can go in a lot more detail about this, right? But for the most part, if they're coming in like, hey, listen to your coach. He knows what he's talking about, right? He knows more than you do. He's trying to help you get better. And hopefully you as a parent make sure that you're putting him in front of the right coach.
Right.
Right? Because obviously that's a whole nother issue. But just treat it as like you would as a teacher, sending your kid to school. And we get so involved. And how many times I've had to pull a dad off the fence, go, hey man, stop yelling at him in the middle of his at bat. You know, the kid doesn't know who to listen to. So yeah, anyways, but actually I just read a great book about that. If you've never read the letter that Mike Matheny wrote to the parents of his travel team, it's called the Matheny Manifesto. Look it up, and then he wrote a book on it too.
Right on.
But you can actually read the letter. It's depending on where you get the letter, it's like 5 pages.
Right.
It's a full-on letter, and just saying, hey, this is what I expect from you as a parent. And one of the main things that stuck out to me is he said, I want you to sit there and be quiet. I don't want you to cheer for him. I don't want you to, bash anything. I just want you, all you can do is clap. And when something good happens, you hoot and holler and you clap, and that's it.
Right.
But it's a great one, man. I tell you what, if I do another team, then like a club team, I'm making them read that book.
Yeah, as you should. Yeah,
I think every parent that has a player should read that book by Mike Matheny for sure. You said you've read it?
I read the manifesto, the 5-page document, and it's terrific.
Oh, yeah.
And it basically just defines everybody's role, right?
Yeah, correct.
And we all have a role to play. But I've been there in the stands, and some parents, oh my God. I mean, I've been with girls softball. It was unbelievable. So we were at a game, and there was, the girls, there was like it was competitive. And then the parents start to get competitive, chirping at each other. And then, it got to a point where there was, punches were thrown amongst parents. And you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So, and I've often even experienced, there was another great one here local in Poway. It was a parent that was just so fired up when his daughter was playing that, you say yelling at through the fence. This guy would literally climb the fence like Spider-Man. He would get so worked up. He and he'd like go up like 3 feet up the fence, and you're like, what's going on here? And like, I understand as a parent, I feel that emotion.
Yeah.
But some go way over the line,
It's when you just want to take a video of somebody else doing it and send it to him and say, hey, look at this crazy guy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, give credit. Some parents understand it and they actually go and sit behind the outfield fence because they know they can chill and they know that if they're behind the plate, they might make a spectacle of themselves.
I think it's those parents that realize that one game isn't the make or break. It's not the outcome of that game that's going to define their kids, and it's the parents that think, oh my goodness, if he doesn't get a hit here, he's going to be devastated and he's going to come home sad. And it's like, you know what? The best thing that could happen to that kid is he strikes out in that situation when he's 10 years old, because hopefully he remembers that when he's in practice next time.
Yeah.
He remembers that feeling that he had when he struck out, and it's just, obviously you don't wish that upon your kids. I mean, shoot, I just watched my son's in karate and he threw on the sparring gear for the first time and I just saw him get his butt kicked. And I'm talking about he got knocked down. I'm like,
see this? Yeah, you're feeling it, right? Yeah.
But you know what? At the end of it, I was like, hey, man, that was awesome. Like, that was cool. Because he got up and he was like, wow, that guy really knocked me out. I guess I need to practice. That's what he said. And I was excited for that.
Yeah. Well, this is like full circle. It's like what Deron Johnson was saying, how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
And if you
Absolutely.
And if you had a bad situation, you felt bad, then that gives you that motivation to get to a feel good spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Because nothing feels better, well, at least coming from a sports, but I mean, you can say this about any kind of, all of life, when you have failed and you failed and you failed, and then all of a sudden you do have that success. Oh. Man, like you don't get that feeling when you succeed the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
You just don't.
You don't, no.
And so, I mean, it takes, like one of my favorite things, I have no idea who said this, he said it's the bad times that make the good times great.
Yes.
You know? Because if you have nothing but good times, they're all just good times.
Right.
But it's the bad times that make the good times great.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard various versions of that, but that is right on the money.
Yeah.
The challenge though is that sometimes people they'll give up. They'll give up too soon.
Yeah.
Because they have those challenges, those bad times, they hit the eject button, where the next time could have been the great one. Yep. And then all of a sudden they take off.
Yeah. And
then everything's different.
And see, that's where I see as a coach, or now learning as a young parent too, that's what you try. That's where the motivation comes in, and you teach them that it's okay to fail, that failure isn't going to define them. But, the other thing, and going back to this book by Matheny, he talks about, when you're up there and you're yelling at them, come on, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. And then they fail. It's like 10 times worse, because then he goes back and goes, man, mom and dad really thought I could do it and I didn't. But if you just go out and you let the kid play and you just, you try to do your best, and you practice and you focus on trying to win. I mean, it is about winning, right? And the strive to win. And you fail, it's like, okay, that's just part of it. Got to get to that point. Like you said, how do we get them to motivate themselves to where, okay, I don't want to feel that feeling of failure anymore. I want some success too, And then there's a point too where if they continue to fail, maybe that's not where they're supposed to be.
Well, they go to drama class, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, shoot, there is that aspect too. I mean,
right.
I've had plenty of players that have gotten cut and they go over. In fact, one just recently, Oh my goodness. Sam Roberts got cut. Well, I mean, he was a decent baseball player, played. I remember I had him all the way through. He got cut, I want to say his junior year, walked right over to the golf coach. He ended up playing all year as in varsity golf.
Right on.
You know, and you just go, hey, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, yeah, I know I know if you ask him, he was like, yeah, I'd rather play baseball. But shoot, he would have sat all year on the bench.
Right.
Versus he played every match. You know, so there's little things like that. But yeah, I mean, how do we get them motivated through the failure to get to that point, like you were saying?
Yeah.
You know, to where they do hit that breaking point where it's like, okay, now here we can take off.
Well, it's like the Mulholland kid, you know? I mean, he found that break point, a little bit different path, but he found it and he didn't give up.
No, and he's still living it.
That's
in a lot of ways, he's still living it.
This is great because, like, as a hitting coach, you're not just teaching the mechanics, you're not just teaching the mental side of the game, but you're teaching life lessons.
That's what we're supposed to be doing, right?
All the way through this.
Shoot.
So now you're doing a lot of your own independent coaching now as well, right?
Yeah. So, you know, really, you don't pay the bills by coaching by you don't pay the bills with what the school actually pays you, right?
Right. Okay, I understand. Yeah.
So I do, you know, before for the last decade, I've really kind of made my living through coaching teams,
Right.
And doing the Crush and founding the Crush and doing that. But now I've really decided that I just wanted to work with kids individually. And
Right.
so yeah, I do a lot of one-on-one stuff, mostly hitting lessons, do some catching lessons. But that's what I do kind of as my main job,
Right.
in that regard. And I mostly work with kids in that little league age.
Right.
So yeah, and I enjoy that. I like that a lot better because I can really dive in one-on-one with the kid. And then at the same time, I really have only about 12 kids as far as the team setting goes to focus on a day-to-day basis, and then have my kids that come in on a weekly basis, and then I get to ask them, hey, you know, how'd the game go?
Right.
You know,
Right.
or hey, how'd the best is, well, what's your coach telling you?
Yeah.
You know, and try to, well, he's telling me this or that or this, and I'm okay, well, let's try to understand where he's coming from. You know, why is he telling you that in the first place? Why does he feel the need to tell you that? Because if you were doing everything right, he probably wouldn't tell you anything at all, except for, hey, man, nice hit.
Yeah. Right.
Right? So, and we try to decipher that. So, yeah, it's fun being able to break that down on an individual basis.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that, and I've made kind of a commitment that I'm not going to do the travel teams anymore, the club teams,
Right.
because I really feel I can make a lot more impact doing just the high school team, working with the kids at Westview, and then just doing kids on like a one-on-one or even like small group basis. So yeah.
And then you don't have to have all the craziness that we just talked about, with the parents and all those conflicts.
I mean, you still get some crazy parents. They're out there, man.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's nice, and you get a little more choosing. But I tell you, one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize, especially the parents that play travel ball, is how much back end stuff goes into running a travel ball team. You know, especially if you don't have volunteers on the field. Because our program, we never had a single volunteer. Our motto, you know, our motto was no dads on the field.
Yeah.
As you know, when Trevor played, I mean, we did have a few instances. Of course, Trevor saw that because little Deron played. So Deron Johnson would be out there.
Yeah.
But he was a professional coach that just happened to have a son come through.
Yeah.
You know, so we had those small instances. But other than that, I mean, we didn't have any dads out there. So they were all paid coaches.
Yeah.
Which, you know, come from hiring guys that have experience that are working well with kids. And when you have more than 5 teams, now you've got to trust coaches to go out and run these practices and that kind of thing, because you just can't be there. I've actually said many times the worst thing I did is expand to be on 2 teams. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had some great coaches, but the hardest thing to do with club was managing my coaches, because there's not a ton of money in it. It's not like anybody's out there getting rich, or at least they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. But it was tough. I mean, a lot of different personalities. Kids, you know, got great people, but just get frustrated in certain times.
Yeah.
Working with certain kids. It's tough working with kids.
It is. Well, yeah. They're kids.
They're boneheads.
Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time, you're a bonehead.
But I would imagine running an organization's hard logistically. I mean, you got to schedule these tournaments and, you know, and you've got to I'm sure some teams are more advanced than others.
Yeah.
Some teams are ready for tournament ball. Other teams are not.
Yeah.
And you got to kind of feel that out.
Finding the right competition is tough. And kind of going back to what we were talking about, with you have your like 5 really good kids and then maybe not so good kids. And so trying to find a competition where you're still pushing your kids that need to be pushed, but then still developing the kids that don't. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of swing joints that go into that, and and then field time and getting umpires and which tournament to join, and those tournaments aren't cheap.
No, they're not.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, they're like almost $1,000 or more, right?
The tournaments we joined were always somewhere between $600 and $700 for 3 games minimum. You play 3-game minimum, and of course a lot of our teams, and you hope to win a couple in the
right.
But so there's a lot of money involved in it, unfortunately, and so.
But I think the people that run those organizations like USSSA, they're making money. I mean, the umpires have got to be paid.
I hope so, yeah.
The coaches are getting paid. I mean, as they should, right?
Yeah.
So
you're going to put service together, absolutely. Yeah. And those fields, I mean, you look at what it costs to rent out like one of those sportsplex fields, or the high school fields or whatever fields you're playing on. It's there's a lot of money that goes into that.
No question. So I think it's awesome that you're I've always known of you as being, the local guy that had played ball here, that always coached here. So many families got to know you through baseball. And it's always been a real positive, a positive vibe associated with your name. Yeah. I mean that for real. And so you and I, we've known each other for a while, but we never have done this.
No, we haven't.
So this is fun. Usually it's like, hey, how you doing? And, 5 minutes of small talk. Yeah. Right?
At least with you, it wasn't, hey, why aren't you playing my kid?
I was really thinking that.
Yeah.
I just didn't say it. No.
I actually do have a funny Trevor story.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's not funny. I don't think you'll think it's funny. But this was actually not too long ago. We were, he would have been a junior, and Jay Johnson came out to watch him throw. It was in the Phil Singer series, where it was the 18U tournament. And this was when he was still being recruited, obviously. And Dom had sent Jay out to come watch him. And Jay, it was kind of one of those things, you never know. When a guy's coming out specifically to watch one guy, you never know when he's going to be there or not.
Yeah,
At the same time, we were trying to win the tournament.
Right, yeah.
So, anyways, Jay did show up, and he came out. So we got Trevor loose, went out there, and he walked 4 guys. And I went, so I had to pull him.
Yeah, it just,
it was just, he was in that mode. I mean, you remember when he was having a little control issue at that time, and but he threw hard. I mean, he was in the 90s, wasn't he? Low 90s at that point. So, anyways, Dom calls afterwards, and he goes, "Hey, Jay liked what he saw, but he wants to see him again."
Okay, right.
And I'm going, are you kidding me? I gotta win this game. I got lost in the mindset,
right.
And Dom goes, Caleb, what are we here for? And I went, you're right, Tom. I'll put him in. We'll start it next day. And sure enough, he came out and struck out the side.
Right.
It was like, atta baby.
Okay, good. So there you go.
And it was, I don't know if they ever talked to you after that. I didn't follow up with, how that went with Arizona, but obviously he's playing in a good spot now. But
he's doing all right.
But that's kind of what we go through. And that's just, you get lost in the emotion of winning. And that was a big tournament that, that I always like, so that's a little Trevor story.
But I'm sure that happens a lot, like some kid, like you said, the coach came to see you, you struck out twice, but you also threw out a couple of guys, right? Yeah. But at any moment in time, you never aren't sure how it's going to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. And and a lot of those guys too, and this kind of goes back to the what the parents are looking for. The coach might not be looking for you to strike out the side that day. Because there's a certain aspect that the coach thinks that he can teach you more when you get to his program, right? He wants to see if you have those basic tools, like, for example, a pitcher throwing hard, right? He's got a good body. He's got good composure, when he walked a guy and didn't throw a hissy fit,
right?
And then he came back the next day.
Yeah.
Right. And got on the mound just like he did the day before. So everybody has bad days, whatever, especially young kids.
Yeah.
So it's nice to know, those guys, they're not looking for, hey, I'm going to see this one guy hit. He better strike out. If he doesn't strike out the side, I'm not taking him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they want to see, okay, he's got good form. He's got a good body, throws hard or whatever, you know, maybe on the other side is a hitter, you know, he's doing these certain things and we like him. Let's, you know, and go from there. So
yeah,
no,
that's a good story. I don't think I ever knew that in that level of detail.
I don't think I've ever told you.
Yeah. Okay. Now everyone knows. All good.
Yeah.
So any words of wisdom you want to leave with us as we wrap up?
Oh man, you know, that's what I always tell my kids: stay in attack mode. You know, it's especially from the hitting side. You know, you just don't give in. Don't give in. Like we talked about, don't sacrifice bat speed, right?
Yeah.
Stay in attack mode. You never know. I mean, when I was hitting good, I remember always saying, this was in college, my teammates used to call me arrogant for saying this, but man, when I was feeling good, just put Randy Johnson on the mound, I could hit him. And I was like, and I said, hey, you know what? I might strike out 99 times out of 100, but I said, you know what? He's going to throw that ball somewhere where my bat can reach it, and watch. If I swing enough times, I'm going to hit that thing.
Right on.
And so, yeah. And as long as I'm swinging with some authority, with something behind it, man, I'm going to hit it.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit it hard. But if I'm just trying to, like, make contact, I'll never go anywhere.
That's, again, lessons for life, man.
Yeah.
Just
absolutely.
go for it. Give it your all.
Indeed.
You know, and don't back down.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Well, Caleb, I've enjoyed this. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, me too.
And
it flew by.
How long we've been going? Probably at least an hour. So I'm going to be paying attention to Westview this spring. I want to see how you guys are doing. Maybe I could come out to a game.
Yeah, we play Poway, I think late April.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So we'll have to come out and see how it's going. And I wish you the best of luck. I mean, I think you've got all the tools to be successful.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have a great year. So
thanks, John.
All right. Thanks, Caleb. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.